everyone, Sue from Just Move a Bit. Finally wanted to talk to you about the gut-brain connection. So the gut and the brain are not independent of each other. They're quite dependent on each other. So it is, let's think about this as there is a pathway, so a highway of sorts, which would be the vagus nerve that connects the brain to the gut. So it's a bidirectional pathway. So it goes from the brain to the gut and the gut to the brain. They're in constant communication with one another. So what affects the gut, in turn, affects the brain. Now the vagus nerve is found at the base of your neck. It is the longest, cranial nerve, and it's at the brain stem, at the base of your skull. It goes through your thorax, down your abdomen, and below your belly button, which is where your gut is located. So within your gut, we all have trillions and trillions of microorganisms that make up what we call the microbiome. Now the microbiome is made up of different types of bacteria. We all have good bacteria and bad bacteria, and the amount of bacteria that we have in our bodies is different for each and every one of us. Now, how do we accumulate good bacteria and bad bacteria? So bad bacteria is accumulated if we do things that are not healthy for us. So things such as, if we do not get proper sleep, we accumulate more bad bacteria. If we do not get enough exercise, we accumulate bad bacteria. So in turn, getting proper exercise, getting good sleep, we get more good bacteria, and that is what we want. So the more good bacteria we have, the healthier we are. So the vagus nerve controls various organ functions in our body. So our respiratory rate, our heart rate, it controls our digestion, it controls so many other factors. Now the vagus nerve is it goes through our digestive, our GI tract, and also is in communication with our cardiovascular system. So if we exercise, for example, exercise releases the good feel hormone, so dopamine, right? So our behavior, our moods, and our emotions are affected by everything we put in our body, and every action that we take. It's all interconnected. So if let's say we have high stress in our life. High stress in our life is going to lead to headaches, which in turn is going to lead to sometimes, when you have butterflies in your stomach, you feel anxious and you have a tummy ache, and so that doesn't feel good. And then you have things such as, we talked about, what if we eat a meal that contains good healthy fats along with fish and high fiber with a ton of vegetables. Now something like that is going to create more good bacteria than bad bacteria, because our bodies need proper nutrition in order to function properly. So everything is interconnected, and I just wanted to make sure that we kind of understood that our mental health also is affected by the food that we eat. So if we are, if we eat more processed foods, we are not going to feel good, right? More processed foods will lead to you just feeling crappy. For example, the other night I had, which is really horrible habit of mine, but I like to eat chips, and sometimes I can't control myself. So when this happens, I can literally eat a whole bag of chips in an evening while I'm watching a Netflix series, let's say. The next morning I wake up and I'm in the bathroom, not feeling good. So it's affecting my mood, right? It's affecting my digestion. It is affecting everything the next morning. Not a good feeling. So you can see, I think it's a little clear now on how you can see how the gut and the brain are connected. So we are not exactly just what our bodies, this expression, you are what you eat. So we actually are our body, we are what we eat, but we are what our bodies can do with what we eat, because every individual is different and unique, and our bodies all function differently depending on our circumstances. So we all have different, in functional nutrition, we concentrate on the whole person, right? So the whole person includes environmental factors, social factors, stress in her life, personal factors, medical history. We have our genes affect us as well. So we look at the whole person, and within the whole person, we have to make sure that we do everything possible so that the way we look at different, different symptoms, different, I am, like I mentioned before, I am not a doctor, I am not a nutritionist, I am not a psychiatrist, but I do know, with all my studies and all my schooling, everything that I have learned is all backed by science. That's one thing that I forgot to mention in one of my videos. I wanted to make sure that I mentioned that. So everything that I have learned is backed by science. So then science tells us that each and every one of us is unique. I mentioned genes. So all of these things play a role in our health. And if we have someone who, let's say, has a diagnosis of dementia in one person versus another person, Western medicine typically treats someone with the same diagnosis with the exact same treatment. Functional nutrition is not like that. Functional nutrition looks at, since I'm not a doctor and I don't prescribe medication, we look at all of the factors. It fills in the gaps of what the scope of practice of a doctor, it's out of their scope, I guess you can say. So, for example, I talked to a friend of mine who is a doctor. In their medical school, they only concentrate on 17 hours within the thousands and thousands of hours that they study to become a doctor. 17 hours is all they know about nutrition. So it's out of their scope of practice. It's not their fault. This is not something that they learn in medical school. So a functional nutrition counselor, functional nutrition coach, which is what I am, is where we fill in the gaps. We look at the things that our systems, so I look at how all the body systems are connected with one another and how each individual is unique, and every person has a different history, which in turn is going to mean that what I do in practice is going to, there's three things that I do in practice. So I assess information based on an intake form, which is kind of, I guess, what you can call like medical history that a doctor, would ask questions and whatnot. So I have my own intake form. And so I assess the information, then I recommend. So it's called the art of the practice, ART, assess information, recommend based on that information, and I track information over time. And this is done kind of in a, one thing leads to another, and once I'm done tracking one thing, it leads to assessing something else, because it's a constant discovery. because I mentioned your systems are connected. So your cardiovascular system is connected to your urinary system, is connected to your respiratory system. Everything is connected. And we have to treat, I don't want to use the word treat since I'm not a doctor. I look at things from a functional lens. So the way your body would function at its best is different than the way my body would function at its best. Since I have different, I grew up differently, I have different genetics, I have different habits, different behaviors, different stress levels. So everything is looked at differently. And it's a constant discovery. And it's really, really interesting how this all works in functional nutrition. So I look at you as a unique individual, and I do my best to make sure that you are comfortable and you are your own health advocate, because you will discover within our discussions, you will begin to understand how everything is connected. And I've been doing counseling, coaching sessions for a bit now, and they are always different. And a lot of times my clients will say, wow, I get it now. That makes sense. Thank you for explaining that. They'll say, I've never had someone explain this or spend this much time. And I really enjoy doing this kind of work and helping people. So one of the most important things is talking about the gut-brain connection, because we have so much control, so much more control than we ever imagined. I mean, it is up to us to be our own advocate. I'm just a guide. So I hope that you enjoyed the conversation today, and you continue to watch, you share with your friends and family, and if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, hit the notification bell so you do not miss any future videos. Thank you again for watching, and I hope you enjoy your evening. Take care.